A believable one-point perspective. In Lesson 2, we also reviewed two more complex methodologies of creating a much more accurate one-point perspective. The problem with those methodologies is they take a lot of time, and they also require a lot of drafting tools and projection, almost orthographic projection, to create the perspective drawing. For this drawing, I'm going to lay it out with a Sharpie pen, and I've got an ultra fine point. I actually prefer a finer point, which is extra fine, but for this video I think you'll be able to see the line work maybe a little bit better with the ultra fine. There is another thing that I like about Sharpies, in that when we do a marker rendering over them, the Sharpies will tend to bleed or almost erase as we're doing the drawing. So you will see a lot of construction lines. But Jessica is going to do the rendering on this demonstration. You'll see she'll be able to take advantage of the Sharpies by kind of blending them out of the drawing as we progress. So I'm going to start this drawing by doing the back wall of the perspective. And I'll just draw a line here, and I'm going to grid off this line. But I'm not going to use a scale. It is a measuring line. I could use a scale and actually use this at 1/4 inch equals a foot, or whatever scale I want, but I'm just going to eyeball it. So about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll make my room 12 feet wide, and then I'm going to make the ceiling it'll be about 10 feet high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet high. And I'll complete the back wall of my room. I will set the horizon line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet above the ground, about normal standing eye level, and then locate the central vanishing point. Drawings usually look better when the central vanishing point is located slightly off center. From the central vanishing point, I will draw the four corners of the room. And now I have to determine the depth. So the baseline on the back wall is a measuring line. I can actually scale it. And the height is a scalable line. However, the depth has to follow the rules of linear perspective. So as vertical lines get closer to the back wall, they do appear to converge. So estimating the depth of the room, there is a little trick we can use. I want to make this room 10 feet deep. So I'm going to take the 10-foot measure on the back wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 feet is right here. And I'm going to draw a light line forward from that 10-foot mark. Now I want to estimate a square on the ground. And you can see if I would draw a line right across here, the resulting rectangle would certainly not look like a square. If I drew it way out here, it would look like a rectangle that was deeper than it was wide. So now, using our sense of scale and proportion, I'm going to estimate that a floor square would be right about here. And my estimating is pretty darn believable, I think. It helps to create a drawing that isn't necessarily perfectly accurate, but is completely believable. I'll now draw a diagonal, and so I have a square on the floor, 10 feet wide, 10 feet deep, with a diagonal. And I can use simple geometry by running lines to the diagonal from the central vanishing point, crossing through each one of these tick marks on the back wall. And I'll do that quickly and lightly. Now, you may prefer, when you're laying out a drawing like this, to actually use a pencil that is erasable. I actually, on drawings, don't mind seeing guidelines. I think they add kind of a artistic flair to the drawing and makes the drawing look just a little more interesting. It's not looking like something that was done on a computer. It tends to look more like a sketch. Now, you'll notice each one of these lines that I placed in, where it crosses the diagonal will indicate the footmarks that I can project over to the left or right wall. And when I project these over, you will notice that as these footmarks get closer to the back wall, they're going to appear to get closer together. Again, that's linear perspective. So once I've completed this projection from the diagonal, I now have marked off the vertical, the horizontal on the back wall, and the depth with tick marks indicating 1 foot marks from the front to the back wall. I can now use these tick marks. I could grid off the floor, the wall, but I don't really need to do that anymore. I can use those tick marks to kind of lay out my furniture as a floor plan. The first thing that I'm going to do is lay out a sofa, and I'm going to make my sofa just about 3 feet deep, and I'll make the sofa about 7 feet long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bring a horizontal line out for the sofa. So you notice I'm just doing a floor plan. In front of the sofa, I'm going to place a coffee table. And that coffee table is going to be about 3 feet square. And then on the back wall, on the right side wall, I will place a couple of smaller club chairs. And I'm going to make those kind of consistent with the sofa. They kind of line up, and then about in between the 2 lines, the 7 foot marks, I can draw a line now dividing these 2 little club chairs. It might be interesting on the back wall, and I will line this up with the coffee table to put in a little fireplace. And that represents the floor plan: sofa, coffee table, fireplace, and 2 chairs. Now let's start completing the drawing. I'm going to add a window on the back wall, almost floor to ceiling, and that window will have just a little bit of depth to it. When I'm done laying this out, Jessica is going to give you a first rendering demonstration. Let's run the fireplace up to the ceiling, the depth of the fireplace, and from the vanishing point I can see how far it projects out across the ceiling. We will add a little fireplace opening. And that fireplace opening will have some depth to it. Slightly below the midpoint, I'm going to add a hearth, and I'll run the hearth all the way to the right wall, to the left wall, I'm sorry. I'll line up the edge kind of with the edge of the fireplace opening. Give it just a little bit of depth on the fireplace, and then a little more depth to the back wall. There's a mantel. Now let's bring up the sofa, the furniture. And a sofa height is 1, 2, it's a little less than 3 feet. If I run that 3 foot line along the back wall, there's where the wall ends. If I run a guideline up to that mark and run that out horizontally, that will represent the height of the sofa that I'm going to put in my drawing. Back of the sofa. I want to add some thickness for the arms. And now I'm just estimating. My eye is actually pretty well trained. And as you do more and more of these drawings, you will develop your own personal sense of scale and proportion that will allow you to make these drawings that are pretty believable. Not necessarily perfectly accurate, but believable. And you can also do these drawings really quite quickly using this methodology, far quicker than if you would use the methodology that was reviewed in Lesson 2, sections 1 and 2. I'm now bringing the coffee table up from the floor, and coffee table height is generally about seat height for that sofa. So there's the seat height, project the coffee table base over to the sofa, up to the seat, back over, and that represents the height of the coffee table. We can throw in some depth for the legs. And I won't see the back leg, it's covered by the tabletop. Now let's finish off the 2 chairs on the left side of the room. Those chairs, club chairs, will be about the same height as the sofa. Run up the front back to the vanishing point will give me the lines that I need to add the arm depth. Lines get pretty close together here. Now the seat height and the cushion. And then the back of these chairs. I can extend the lines to line them all up. Things appear to get pretty close together just because of the perspective. And then the angle of the seat back. Let's lay down a area rug here. And we won't run it all the way to the back wall. We can run it across here. And then we can complete, maybe I'll bring out these floor lines just a little bit. And we can indicate that as being a tile floor. And maybe we'll put one more line in here for some tile. Let's put a picture on the back wall, and we will line that picture up with the sofa. And we'll make it, maybe 6 or 8 inches above the sofa. And then the height of that, let's line it up about like this. We have one more detail. Let's just add a little, let's add a beam in the ceiling. And that beam will go horizontally all the way across the room. And that completes the layout. I've got a sofa, picture on the wall, fireplace, mantelpiece, fireplace opening, coffee table, 2 chairs, area rug, and a tile floor. So that completes this part of the designer's method of creating a one-point perspective. Jessica, in part 2, will do the rendering.